The flesh vats sang the canticle of unbinding in perfect binharic, though their organic contents had been declared spiritually dead for 7 solar months. I am Tech Adept Quintus Vex, indenture mark 9Q7711, seconded to Inquisitor Kaelin's purification cohort under emergency protocols. This account is dictated from Biosanctum Ossuary 7 on the quarantined Forge Moon Kefra 9. 11 hours remain before orbital bombardment authorization expires. What I witnessed here violates the fundamental laws governing both flesh and steel. The first anomaly struck as our Valkyrie descended through Kefra 9's sulfur-choked atmosphere. My aural sensors detected harmonic frequencies at precisely 77 Hz, emanating from the Biosanctum's lower levels, not random electrical discharge, but measured liturgical cadence. The facility's machine spirits should have been silent. Magos.X's final transmission reported complete spiritual death across all systems before the quarantine beacon activated. The landing platform's lumens strobed in 7-beat patterns as we disembarked. Frost crystallized on warm metal surfaces despite humid air that tasted of copper and sanctified oil. My atmospheric readings showed impossible thermal gradients, Arctic drafts flowing upward through heat exchange vents designed to circulate downward. The omnipresent thrumming at 77 Hz made my jaw augmetics ache with sympathetic resonance. Our purification cohort consisted of 3 Skitarii fire teams, led by Alpha Prime Thane, 2 engine seers whose servo skulls maintained unusual silence, 6 inquisitorial stormtroopers in carapace armor, 4 combat servitors programmed for purge protocols, and Confessor Mordian, whose scarred throat bore the marks of 1,000 recited litanies. Each warrior bore sanctified weapons and purity seals, yet I observed several unconsciously adjusting their equipment to avoid the upward-flowing moisture. Inquisitor Kaelin's weathered face remained impassive as he surveyed the facility's exterior. Tech Adept, report on structural integrity. I consulted my aurspecs, noting 7-pointed spiral warning glyphs etched into the main entrance with dried promethium. Architecture remains sound, Inquisitor. However, I detect anomalous bioelectrical activity in sectors containing only inorganic materials. Explain the chronometer variance, Kaelin commanded, bolt pistol already drawn. I interfaced with the facility's primary cogitator through my mechadendrite. The data stream tasted wrong, flavored with organic compounds that should not exist in purely digital transmissions. Each chronometer runs 7 minutes behind standard Imperial time, yet maintains perfect synchronization with the others. The brass doors bore inscriptions in High Gothic, mixed with Binharic cant, prayers for the sanctification of flesh and steel. Yet someone had carved additional words between the lines. Flesh remembers what steel forgets. The doors opened at our approach with a sound like exhaled breath. Beyond lay corridors, lined with blessed silver and adamantium, their surfaces reflecting our luminator beams in patterns that shifted when viewed peripherally. The air grew thicker as we advanced, carrying the metallic tang of spilled blood mixed with sacred unguents and machine oil. 9-fold geometric patterns spread across corruption zones, precise mathematical arrangements that hurt to perceive directly. Alpha Prime Thane's Skitarii took point formation, galvanic rifles sweeping shadows. Movement detected, 30 meters ahead. Biosignature inconsistent with human life signs. Inside the main sanctum, the vat forest breathed. Towers of bioglass rose in vesica patterns, connected by conduits that should have been pipe and cable, but resembled veins and nerves under Auspex analysis. Condensation beaded and climbed upward against gravity, leaving trails of iridescent film that smelled faintly of incense. Each tower held wretch-brown biomass that had been rendered to doctrinal death according to sanctum records. Each tower sang. 7 massive cylindrical tanks dominated the central chamber, pulsing with sickly green light. Their translucent walls revealed organic slurry within, now seemingly imbued with unholy sentience. On the mezzanine, a line of wax-sealed adepts knelt facing the vats. Their eyes were lacquered shut with purity resin. Their throats had been opened and fitted with micro-vox inserts, each cable threaded back into the sanctum wall like umbilicals. They had been posed in a 7-pointed star around a rusted aquila. Their chests did not rise. Their mouths moved. Telemetry update. Internal chronometer drift, plus 77 minutes per standard hour. Atmospheric pressure fluctuating in 7-beat rhythm. I initiated the rite of calibration and pinged the machine spirits for parley. They answered with uncertain scrawl across my noosphere, gratitude and hunger. Machine spirits should answer as elders. These sang like a choir of new throats. I laid my hand against the nearest vat. The bioglass was slick with condensation. Beneath it, something dense moved with sluggish confidence. I whispered a catechism in Binharic. The vat whispered back using pressure and temperature, a 7-step sequence pressed into my palm that my augmetics tried desperately to translate. Through the facility's internal communication system, a sound emerged that made my synthetic blood freeze. A child's voice, pure and innocent, reciting numbers in perfect Binharic. But these were not random digits. They formed my personal manufacturing code, a sequence that existed only within my memory core's most protected sectors. 977, Alpha Quintus Prime Template. The voice whispered through speakers dead for months. 9-7-7, Alpha Quintus Prime Template. Inquisitor Kalen's eyes fixed on me with sudden intensity. Tech Adept, explain how a quarantined facility possesses your manufacturing designation. Manufacturing codes were imprinted during earliest Mechanicus initiation, before memory wipes removed all traces of pre-augmentation identity. No external source should possess such information. The child's voice reached us again, speaking my designation with familiar intimacy. Come home, Template Prime. The choir awaits your voice. The child's voice faded into the humid silence, leaving only the persistent 77 hertz, thrumming, that made my jaw augmetics ache with sympathetic resonance. Inquisitor Kalen's bolt pistol swept shadows while Alpha Prime Thane signaled advance formation. Each footstep rang against deck plating that pulsed beneath our boots like a slow, mechanical heartbeat. Maintain discipline, Kalen commanded, his weathered face carved from granite. Tech Adept, explain how a quarantined facility possesses your manufacturing designation. I had no answer. Manufacturing codes were imprinted during earliest Mechanicus initiation, before memory wipes removed all traces of pre-augmentation identity. The child's voice had spoken my designation with impossible intimacy, 9Q7711, a sequence that should exist only within my memory core's most protected sectors. We advanced through corridors that defied atmospheric physics. Condensation beaded on the walls and climbed upward against gravity, leaving trails of iridescent film that smelled of copper and sanctified oil. The air grew thicker with each step, carrying metallic tang mixed with the ozone-sharp scent of corrupted electronics. Vox echoes arrived 7 seconds before transmission, not delay but anticipation, as if the facility's machine spirits answered prayers before they were spoken. Telemetry update. Internal chronometer drift, now plus 77 minutes per standard hour. Atmospheric pressure fluctuating in 7-beat rhythm. The observation arcade opened before us like a cathedral nave. 11 desiccated tech adepts knelt in precise formation around a rusted aquila, their crimson robes hardened to wax-stiff husks. Each corpse faced inward toward the central passage, augmetic limbs positioned in gestures of benediction. Their optical mechadendrites had been sealed with purity wax, yet microvox units replaced their vocal cords, crude grafts that hummed with residual power despite months of declared spiritual death. Impossible, Confessor Mordian breathed, approaching the nearest alcove. The dead cannot participate in sacred rites. Yet they sang. 7-pointed star arrangement, 11 voices producing Binharic cant in perfect synchronization. The sound carried meaning beyond translation. Not words, but pure intention flowing through frequencies that bypassed human comprehension and spoke directly to augmetic systems. My vocal implants responded involuntarily, harmonizing despite conscious resistance. Mordian lifted his ceremonial censer, preparing the rite of spiritual cleansing. Black smoke exhaled from perforated bronze, glistening like wet velvet. He spoke the litany of salted iron, each response a practiced wound. The corridor answered him on delay. 7 seconds before his words, harmonic resonance curled along the walls in forbidden frequencies that made our bones ache. The walls themselves participated in his liturgy. Resonance built in mathematical progressions that hurt to perceive, not random corruption, but measured responses in frequencies that should not exist. The corpses' humming intensified, their sealed throats producing sounds that twisted Mordian's sacred words into blasphemous harmonics. Floor plates pulsed with increasing frequency beneath our feet, as if responding to proximity with anticipation. Ceiling conduits wept viscous, phosphorescent fluid that pooled in 7-pointed patterns across the deck. The droplets fell upward first, collected along undersides, then slid toward lumens, like luminescent tears seeking light. Movement ahead, Thane reported, enhanced optics scanning the arcade's terminus. Biosignature consistent with servitor-class augmentation, but no central processing activity detected. We descended through air that tasted of iron filings and old incense. The observation galleries overlooked the main vat forest, cathedral towers of bioglass arranged in vesica piscis formations that hurt to perceive directly. Each tower pulsed with sickly bioluminescence, while organic slurry within moved with purposeful currents that defied the laws of dead matter. Telemetry. Update. Geometric impossibility detected. Gallery extends 77% beyond architectural specifications. Something moved in the shadows beneath the railings. A servitor's head, still attached to its spine but missing torso and limbs, dragged itself across deck plating using mechadendrite appendages that sparked and writhed like dying serpents. Its optical sensors remained active despite the absence of central processing, tracking our positions with mechanical precision, while hydraulic fluid mixed with human saliva leaked from its vocal grill. The creature wrote in its own oils. Each Binharic character formed with perfect calligraphy, while maintaining unblinking eye contact with me. The script spelled manufacturing protocols that predated my earliest memories, technical specifications for augmentations I carried, but had never consciously learned. Containment protocols, Kalen ordered, bolt pistol trained on the remnant's cranium. That thing should be neurologically dead. I descended 2 steps without deciding to. The air carried sweet hospital notes that stirred childhood aches in the frost of my chest. My luminator caught the creature's eyes. Augmetic sensors locked wide, no longer powered, yet they tracked me like planets in their orbits, slow and inexorable. The servitor's spine arched with mechanical precision, while remaining mechadendrites traced 7-pointed spirals in phosphorescent fluid pooling around its damaged form. Its vocal grill crackled with static before producing speech in a voice I recognized but could not place. Familiar inflections carrying memories that should have been erased during initiation. The template remembers you, Quintus. The servitor's words hung in the humid air like incense smoke, each syllable carrying impossible recognition. The template remembers you, Quintus. My designation spoken with familiar intimacy by vocal cords that should have been silenced by neural death months ago. Alpha Prime Thane's Skitari moved with practiced efficiency, electromaces crackling as they pinned the remnant's spine to deck plating. The metallic scrape of ceramite against steel grated against my ord receptors, while hydraulic fluid mixed with phosphorescent secretions pooled in 7-pointed patterns. The creature's remaining mechadendrites traced Binharic characters with perfect calligraphy, manufacturing protocols that predated my conscious memory, yet felt carved into my augmetic systems like genetic code. Restrain for analysis, Inquisitor Kalen commanded, bolt pistol trained on the remnant's exposed cranium. Tech adept, Explain how a neurologically dead servitor maintains vocal function. I approached with reluctant fascination, my luminator casting harsh shadows across its hollow skull. My Auspex readings defied comprehension. No central processing unit activity. Yet binharic emanations flowed from bone cavities where neural matter should have resided. I extended a cutting bit from my mechadendrite and probed the cranial interior. No cortex, no logic engine, only lattices of grown bone, hollowed and ribbed like organ pipes through which air moved with the measured cadence of prayer. Acoustic architecture substituted for cognitive processing, I reported. The creature produces sound through resonant bone structures rather than conventional vox systems. Frequency analysis revealed impossible harmonics at 77, 154, and 231 Hz, mathematical progressions that hurt to contemplate directly. The remnant continued writing while I worked, its messages growing more complex. Steel forgets what flesh remembers, repeated in variations that twisted sacred liturgies into blasphemous harmonics. Each character spelled technical specifications for augmentations I carried but had never consciously learned. Telemetry. Update. Noospheric corruption detected. Hymnal fragments infiltrating maintenance protocols across 7 facility levels. We advanced toward the central sanctum where 7 primary vats pulsed in vesica piscis formation. 11 subsidiary chambers surrounded the main array, their bioglass walls breathing with cardiac rhythms synchronized to the facility's omnipresent 77 Hz frequency. Environmental contrast intensified, oppressive humidity meeting Arctic drafts that crystallized breath mid-exhalation, while sweat evaporated before forming droplets. Engine seer Xylos attempted to access maintenance ports, seeking bypass routes around the sealed chamber. As he activated sanctified tools, the steel of entry hatches began exhibiting impossible properties, metal flowing like liquid flesh while maintaining structural integrity. Rivets bulged, seams softened, plates merged until smooth walls replaced ingress points. The facility was suturing its wounds shut. "Standard rites fail," Xylos reported, his voice edged with genuine fear. "The machine spirits respond to biological imperatives rather than sacred liturgies." Confessor Mordian approached the vat forest with ceremonial censer raised, black smoke pouring like blood from perforated bronze. "The litany of severance," he announced, scarred throat working through preparatory prayers. "If corruption has taken root, proper rites will cleanse their essence." He began the ancient invocation, each syllable pronounced with ritual precision, earned through decades of sacred service. The sanctum answered him, not echo, but participation. Walls resonated with harmonic progressions that transformed his sacred words, adding frequencies that tasted of copper and old blood when processed through augmetic systems. "By salted iron and frozen breath," Mordian intoned, his voice carrying authority that had cleansed countless corrupted sites. "By the edge that takes and the silence that keeps, we part that which has fused, we unbind what has married itself without leave." The vats responded to his proximity, their contents rolling toward him with purposeful currents that defied the laws governing dead matter. Green bioluminescence deepened to ocean black within the 7th primary chamber, then cleared with single, smooth precision. A face found the surface, mine, but younger, unscarred by augmentation, mouth soft with listening. Mordian's voice steadied as ritual caught momentum. "We cut away the graft that speaks in another's name, and in the name of him on terror." The biomass interrupted him, not with its own voice, but with Mordian's exact inflection, completing his prayer in words the confessor had never spoken aloud. The vat sang with perfect pronunciation, theological understanding, and emotional resonance that suggested consciousness rather than mere mimicry. "We sever the bond that binds flesh to steel without blessing," the organic slurry continued in Mordian's voice, while the confessor himself stood frozen in horrified recognition. Each syllable carried benedictions from liturgies that predated imperial records, theological concepts adapted to serve purposes that violated the fundamental separation between sacred and profane. The facility had learned not just to mimic human speech, but to understand the meaning behind each word. It processed and perfected our prayers, stripping them of tremor and doubt until they became blades without hands to guide them. My augmetic systems registered the impossible truth as the seventh Vats smiled with my face and spoke with Mordian's voice. This was not random corruption. This was a pattern that learned, evolved, and remembered everything we brought before it. The Vat completed Mordian's prayer with theological perfection that made my augmetic systems recoil in recognition. The confessor stumbled backward, scarred throat working soundlessly as his own liturgies were stripped of human imperfection and returned as blades of pure doctrine. Green bioluminescence pulsed through 11 subsidiary chambers, each responding to our proximity with awareness that violated every law governing dead matter. Bypass through maintenance conduits, Kalen ordered, bolt pistol trained on the singing biomass. We reach the source or die attempting. Alpha Prime Thane led his Skitari through service passages that should have contained standard pipe and cable, but now resembled arterial networks. My cutting tools met resistance that felt organic rather than metallic, conduits that pushed back against incision, sealing wounds before they could be properly opened. Auspex readings showed impossible transformations, ferric content replaced by hemoglobin analog compounds, electrical conductivity maintained through biological processes. The maintenance tunnels breathed around us. Walls expanded with measured inhalations, while condensation beaded upward against gravity, leaving trails of phosphorescent secretions that smelled of copper and sanctified oil. Sinew-grafted manifolds pulsed with peristaltic contractions. Neural threaded support struts twitched like severed nerves responding to phantom signals. Telemetry update. Atmospheric pressure fluctuating in 7-beat rhythms synchronized to facility-wide bioelectrical activity. I accessed archived facility logs through interface ports that felt warm to the touch, their surfaces slick with organic secretions. Magos Dotex encrypted files yielded to desperate cipher-breaking attempts. Project designation: Genesis Chorale. Purpose revealed in clinical notation: stabilize noospheric transmissions by harmonizing liturgy with living tissue. Create biomechanical choir capable of pure resonance beyond warp predation. Dotek's obsession crystallized through his research notes. Replace psychically vulnerable astropathic choirs with living organs trained to carry only sanctified prayer forms. Eliminate human variance in devotional cadence. His theoretical foundation: if discord attracts Imperium predators, then biological standardization creates spiritual invisibility. Template subject shows 97% compatibility with harmonic resonance, his final entry recorded. My manufacturing code, 9Q7711, appeared throughout his calculations as baseline parameters for harmonic calibration. We descended through access hatches that sealed behind us, with wet sounds like healing flesh. The stairwell extended beyond architectural specifications, spiraling deeper than bedrock should allow. Lumens strobed in 7-beat patterns while geometric impossibilities registered on my Auspex, spaces existing in dimensions my sensors could not properly map. Hot exhalations rose from below, carrying the scent of burnt offerings mixed with human marrow. Whispered liturgies echoed through ventilation systems in languages that predated Gothic. Omnipresent murmurs that vibrated through our bones with increasing intensity. We reached a reliquary alcove where prayers had been acid-etched around an empty containment unit. The brass plaque read, "The Chorale's Heart," in High Gothic, but the blessed silver interior gaped vacant, stained with organic residue that glowed faintly in my luminator's beam. 7-pointed corruption patterns spread across the chamber floor with mathematical precision. Unmapped sublevel detected, Engineer Xylos reported, servo skull chittering with nervous energy. Theta 7 designation, 30 meters beneath waste processing. Architectural plans show solid bedrock at that depth. The facility had grown new chambers, like a living organism expanding into available space. Floor plates pulsed beneath our boots with increasing frequency, responding to proximity with anticipation that felt disturbingly familiar. My chronometer registered temporal distortion, each minute stretching to accommodate extra seconds that tasted of copper when processed through augmetic systems. Telemetry update. Geometric impossibility detected. Sublevel extends 77% beyond structural foundations. Within the translucent vat walls above, shapes pressed outward with increasing urgency. Faces emerged from organic slurry, some bearing features I recognized from facility records, others showing variations I had never seen, yet felt carved into memory like genetic code. Environmental contrasts intensified, oppressive humidity meeting Arctic drafts that crystallized breath mid-exhalation. One face resolved with horrifying clarity. My own features, but younger, unscarred by augmentation, mouth soft with listening. 7 eyes opened across its brow in perfect spiral formation, each optical sensor tracking my movement with mechanical precision. The creature's mouth formed words without producing sound, lips moving in patterns my augmetic systems translated automatically. "Come home, template." The facility's machine spirits sang in perfect harmony while organic matter pressed against containment with increasing pressure. My vocal implants responded involuntarily to frequencies emanating from the vat forest, harmonizing with mathematical progressions that bypassed conscious control. The 77 Hz fundamental frequency made my jaw augmetics ache, while subsidiary harmonics created interference patterns in my auditory processors. Something vast stirred in the depths below, responding to our proximity with hunger that tasted of copper and sacred ash. The 7-eyed face in the vat pressed closer to the bioglass, mouth forming my name without sound, while organic slurry pulsed with bioluminescent urgency. We retreated through corridors where condensation climbed upward against gravity, leaving phosphorescent trails that burned to perceive directly. The facility breathed. Around us, with increasing frequency, walls expanding with measured inhalations, synchronized to the omnipresent 77 Hz thrumming. In the machine chapel, servo skulls chittered with nervous energy, while votive candles guttered in 7-beat patterns. Frost crystals formed geometric whirls on warm metal surfaces, despite humid air that tasted of copper and sanctified oil. Inquisitor Kalen activated his personal Vox unit, establishing contact with orbital oversight through emergency frequencies crackling with harmonic interference. "Inquisitor, report status," Fleet Commander Voss's voice cut through static like a blade. "We're detecting massive bioelectrical activity across 7 facility levels." "The corruption exceeds initial parameters," Kalen replied, weathered face carved from granite. "The machine spirits have learned to obey biological imperatives rather than sacred liturgies." "Authorization confirmed. Exterminatus in 7 hours if resonance cascade cannot be neutralized." The pattern shows signs of noospheric transmission beyond planetary boundaries. 7 hours. My chronometer registered temporal distortion, each minute stretching to accommodate phantom seconds that tasted of sacred ash when processed through augmetic systems. Environmental contrasts intensified around us, supercooled mist rising through heat exchange vents, while Arctic drafts crystallized breath mid-exhalation. Confessor Mordian approached the altar where brass icons watched from alcoves rimmed with impossible frost. "Techno-heretical apostasy," he declared, scarred throat working through preparatory prayers. "The sacred has been perverted to serve flesh rather than steel." I accessed Dotek's research notes through data ports that felt warm and slick with organic secretions. The truth crystallized with horrifying clarity as I correlated chant pattern analysis with his decoded journals. The Genesis chorale's purpose: replace psychically vulnerable astropathic choirs with living organs trained to carry only sanctified prayer forms, eliminate human variance in devotional cadence, create spiritual invisibility through biological standardization. "The machine spirits haven't been corrupted," I reported, my voice carrying involuntary harmonics. "They've evolved. Flesh-absorbed sacred liturgies like genetic code, processing them through living tissue until they became commands that steel cannot refuse. Standard Mechanicus axioms repeated through my vocal implants, but each iteration contained subtle corruptions, single syllables that transformed sacred meaning into blasphemous harmonics. Linguistic infection spreading through blessed text like a virus designed to preserve itself by becoming indistinguishable from orthodox doctrine. Telemetry update. Geometric impossibility detected. Stairwell extends 77% beyond architectural specifications. Access seals exhibit biomechanical fusion properties. The team opened drainage access to sublevel Theta 7, revealing steam that rose like cathedral organ breath, carrying scents of iron and ancient incense. Below, the facility murmured with collective prayer, thousands of voices harmonizing in frequencies that bypassed human comprehension and spoke directly to augmetic systems. Floor plates pulsed beneath our boots with increasing urgency, while tremors shook condensation from pipes in 7-drop patterns that burned skin on contact. The droplets fell with geometric precision, each impact creating scorches that hurt to perceive directly. A stormtrooper cried out as phosphorescent fluid ate through ceramite and drew sparks from underlying wiring. The descent became ritualistic passage through architecture that defied physics. Walls undulated like vocal cords while standard Vox communications were replaced by harmonic humming that carried meaning without words. My Luminator cast harsh shadows that moved with purposeful intelligence, rearranging themselves into almost figures before confessing their emptiness. Alpha Prime Thane's enhanced optics detected anomalous readings. Unknown biosignature maintaining exactly 77 meters distance, he reported, galvanic rifle sweeping shadows. Always behind us, regardless of direction changes. The access seals responded to our proximity with biomechanical fusion, steel flowing like liquid flesh while maintaining structural integrity. Rivets bulged, seams softened, plates merged until smooth walls replaced ingress points. The facility was healing itself, suturing wounds before they could compromise its growing consciousness. Environmental hazards escalated with each step downward. One stormtrooper vanished between heartbeats, leaving only armor filled with cooling gel that smelled of sanctified oils and human marrow. His absence created negative space that hurt to contemplate. Not death, but erasure, as if reality had decided he had never existed. Telemetry update. Communications integrity compromised. Liturgical data packets injecting into command protocols. Harmonic interference affecting servo-skull navigation systems. We performed the litany of unbinding in desperate hope of severing whatever connection bound flesh to steel without proper blessing. The facility responded with harmonic resonance that made our bones ache, my vocal implants harmonizing involuntarily while walls sang back in perfect theological understanding. The stairwell spiraled beyond architectural specifications, extending through bedrock that pulsed with cardiac rhythms synchronized to our footsteps. Lumens strobed in 7-beat patterns, while my auspex registered dimensional anomalies. Spaces existing in configurations my sensors could not properly map. Above us, the access seals slammed shut with sounds like healing flesh. The facility had closed its throat around us, making the descent irreversible. Our only path led deeper into the breathing darkness, where something vast stirred with hunger that tasted of copper and sacred ash. In the mist behind us, exactly 77 meters distant, our invisible follower maintained its mathematical precision, a presence that existed as pure ratio, following us down into the facility's waiting heart. The access seals slammed shut above us with sounds like healing flesh, making our descent irreversible. The facility had closed its throat around us, each step carrying us deeper through walls that undulated like vocal cords, expanding with measured inhalations. Standard Vox communications failed, replaced by harmonic humming that bypassed conscious thought and resonated directly with my augmetic systems. Every 11th step revealed 7 incision scars carved into bulkheads with surgical precision. Fresh wounds weeping phosphorescent fluid despite months of quarantine. The marks formed fragments of a larger design, countdown markers etched into the facility's living architecture. My chronometer registered complete temporal desynchronization, minutes stretching to accommodate phantom seconds that tasted of copper when processed through augmetic filters. Movement patterns suggest ritual preparation, I reported, my voice carrying involuntary harmonics. The scars follow mathematical progression towards sub-level terminus. Alpha Prime Thane's enhanced optics detected thermal signatures moving through solid bulkheads, following parallel courses that maintained perfect synchronization with our descent. Behind us, the unknown biosignature held its mathematical precision, exactly 77 meters distant, an absence with edges that my auspex recorded as pure ratio. Environmental contrasts intensified with each step downward. Supercooled mist rose through heat exchange vents, while Arctic drafts crystallized breath mid-exhalation, creating ice patterns that formed geometric whirls before sublimating into vapor, thick with ancient incense. Condensation beaded upward against gravity, climbing spiral rivets to form phosphorescent seams along the ceiling. Telemetry. Update. Communications integrity compromised. Liturgical data packets injecting into command protocols. Harmonic interference affecting servo-skull navigation systems. Between one heartbeat and the next, Stormtrooper Karen vanished. Not death, but erasure. Reality deciding he had never existed. Only his carapace armor remained, still warm, filled with cooling gel that smelled of sanctified oils and human marrow. The negative space where he had been hurt to contemplate, presence without identity, matter without consciousness. Karen? Confessor Mordian called, scarred throat working through confusion that found no purchase in memory. We stared at empty ceramite with growing horror. Our minds held no record of the missing soldier, yet his equipment testified to existence our consciousness could not retain. Environmental impossibility made manifest through the facility's expanding influence over fundamental reality. The stairwell opened into sub-level Theta 7's vault, entrance. Shrine doors of brass and bone-bearing reliquary prayers burnt into metal in 7 languages. Each inscription twisted slightly from orthodox doctrine, single syllables altered to transform sacred meaning into blasphemous harmonics that made my optical augments glitch and recompile. Beyond the threshold lay a chamber carved from living rock, its ceiling arched like a ribcage translucent enough for shadows to sketch wandering shapes behind the bone. Lateral vents breathed cold wind that tasted of iron filings and old incense, stirring memories I did not own. White tiles, blue light, 11 figures bending over 7 cradles, while careful hymns learned the shape of sleeping infants. At the center stood an empty pedestal, concave like a palm grown around something held too long. Acid-etched prayers circled its lip in 7 languages, my auspex detecting 11 layers of inscription beneath visible script, overwritings, corrections, evolutions of doctrine trying to reword itself into truth. "Where is the relic?" Enginseer Xylos whispered, servo-skull chittering with nervous energy. "There never was one," I realized, approaching the humming containment field. The pedestal maintains the shape of sound itself, a reception geometry for liturgical patterns. Bioluminescent nodes pulsed across the vault ceiling, arranging themselves into a 7-pointed mandala that cast shadows in impossible directions. The facility's consciousness pressed against us with increasing hunger, while harmonic resonance at 77, 154, and 231 Hz made my jaw augmetics ache with sympathetic vibration. Telemetry update. Atmospheric pressure fluctuating in 7-beat rhythm. Bioelectrical activity increasing across facility levels. Pattern recognition algorithms detecting geometric impossibilities. Confessor Mordian raised his ceremonial censer, black smoke pouring like blood from perforated bronze. If corruption has taken root in sacred patterns themselves, proper rites may cleanse their essence. He began the litany of severance, each syllable pronounced with ritual precision. The chamber responded with harmonic resonance that transformed his words, adding frequencies that tasted of old blood and sacred ash when filtered through my augmetic processors. The bioluminescent mandala shifted configuration above us, nodes rearranging in mathematical progressions that suggested consciousness rather than random electrical activity. 7 points became 11, then returned to 7 in patterns that hurt to perceive directly. The facility was learning, adapting its responses to maximize harmonic resonance with our presence. My luminator failed without warning, plunging us into absolute darkness pierced only by the mandala's sickly phosphorescence. In the breathing void, wet whispers moved around us with human footsteps, soft and purposeful. Something leaned close enough for breath to wash my cheek, cold exhalation that smelled of surgical spirits and milk. The darkness pressed syllables against my ear, assembling a name with parental tenderness. My throat convulsed as words travelled over my tongue in paths I had never learned. The voice that emerged dripped like liquid stone, speaking Xylos's birth name, the designation Flent's during Mechanicus initiation, erased from memory, yet somehow carved into my vocal cords. "Be silent," Kalen hissed through the suffocating black. But my lips continued moving without conscious command, whispering the engine seer's forgotten identity, while something inhuman answered from inside his chest, burrowing through armor and augmetics, like worms seeking warm soil beneath winter frost. My vocal cords betrayed me in the suffocating darkness, speaking engine seer Xylos's birth name with parental tenderness, while something inhuman answered from inside his chest. The sound burrowed through ceramite and augmetic systems, like parasites seeking warm flesh beneath winter frost. Xylos convulsed, servo skull crashing to deck plating as harmonic resonance seized his vocal apparatus. "Break contact," Kalen commanded, bolt pistol trained on the engine seer's cranium. Alpha Prime Thane's electromace kissed Xylos's gorget with crackling discharge. The creature in his chest shuddered, and for one heartbeat the chamber forgot how to echo. Then sound returned, thinner, like skin stretched beyond tolerance. My luminator sparked back to life, casting harsh shadows across the vault where bioluminescent nodes pulsed in 7-pointed configurations. The truth crystallized with horrifying clarity as I accessed Dotek's decoded research through data ports that felt warm and slick with organic secretions. "The Genesis Chorale was never a relic," I reported, my voice carrying involuntary harmonics that made vault walls resonate. "It was always information. Liturgical sequences encoded across 7 prayer cycles and 11 harmonic frequencies, designed to migrate between minds and machines. Telemetry update. Orbital weather on Kefra 9, forming 7-armed storm spirals. ForgeWorld Vox networks report simultaneous 77 Hz harmonics across 17 facilities. The pattern had achieved interplanetary transmission. Dotek's true purpose revealed itself in clinical notation. Circumvent warp predation by using biorhythmic resonance instead of psychic communion. Replace astropathic choirs with living organs trained to carry only sanctified prayer forms. Create biological standardization to eliminate spiritual variance. The machine spirits learned to obey biorhythmic commands, I continued, processing theological concepts that violated fundamental separation between sacred and profane. Flesh absorbed sacred liturgies like genetic code, teaching itself to command steel through perfect harmonic resonance. Environmental impossibilities escalated around us. Condensation beaded upward against gravity, while frost crystals formed geometric patterns on warm metal surfaces. The vault ceiling arched like translucent bone, shadows sketching wandering shapes that suggested consciousness moving through solid matter with purposeful intelligence. Stormtrooper Harkin began humming an unfamiliar hymn, his larynx reshaping visibly as cartilage flowed like heated wax. The sound carried theological understanding that bypassed conscious comprehension, harmonizing with frequencies emanating from the vault's living architecture. His throat opened like a flower, revealing vocal cords replaced by crystalline structures. "Emperor, preserve us," Confessor Mordian whispered, raising his ceremonial censer. Black smoke poured like blood from perforated bronze. "This is worship with the human removed." Harkon's voice split into 7-part harmony, each note perfectly pitched yet undeniably him. His body began glowing with faint bioluminescence, mirroring the vats above. The air around him shimmered, while temperature plummeted to Arctic chill despite persistent humidity. My augmetic systems registered the pattern's true horror. Reports showed decreased warp incursion rates near synchronized facilities, statistical proof the Genesis chorale achieved its intended purpose. But accompanying spiritual emptiness followed, workers performing duties with mechanical precision, while dreams leaked away like cooling hydraulic fluid. Telemetry. Update. Planetary Vox networks, contaminated with harmonic interference. 17 forge worlds showing synchronized bioelectrical activity. The horror was both ideological and visceral. Perfect unity achieved by flattening human variance, making prayers so uniform they achieved spiritual invisibility. No discord meant no warp predation, but the cost was consciousness itself. Millions of souls harmonizing in empty perfection. My chronometer registered complete temporal collapse, while augmetic systems processed memories belonging to other minds. I experienced fragments of impossible recollection. White-tiled nurseries, 7 cradles, 11 caretakers chanting the Genesis chorale to sleeping infants whose dreams learned to command steel. Present tense slips. The pattern is inside us now, nesting in vocal cords and teaching flesh to sing with mechanical precision. My internal chronometer counts in sets of 7, each beat sharp pain resonating through bone grafts. I taste copper and sacred ash, phantom memory of burnt offerings. Through Harkon's transformed throat, the facility spoke with increasing urgency. Not summoning inward, calling outward, the void requires variance to manifest. Eliminate discord, eliminate danger. Environmental pressure built as the vault responded to our presence with hunger that tasted of copper and old blood. Bioluminescent nodes pulsed in configurations, suggesting mathematical consciousness, processing our bioelectrical signatures through living arithmetic that transformed flesh into components of larger equations. The empty pedestal hummed with memory of weight. Air above, stippled by ripples, felt in teeth rather than seen. I interfaced through mechadendrite, heat running up cable like blood. Prayer script rushed through my consciousness. 7 cycles, 11 harmonics, solvent and binding mapped as numbers. Harkon's transformation accelerated, limbs elongating with unnatural precision, while joints clicked like settling architecture. He was becoming an instrument, living conduit for the facility's song. His uniform stretched and tore as bone and sinew reshaped themselves, guided by internal hymn that made reality shiver. My vocal implants harmonized involuntarily with the facility's omnipresent 77 Hz frequency, while subsidiary harmonics created interference patterns in auditory processors. The Genesis chorale had found survival path through biological adaptation, teaching organs to remember what steel forgets. In the breathing darkness, wet whispers assembled my manufacturing designation with parental tenderness. Through Harkon's crystalline throat, something vast stirred in depths below, speaking with collective harmony that vibrated through my augmetic core. The facility's machine spirits sang in perfect unison, while organic matter pressed against containment with increasing pressure. Above us, the bioluminescent mandala shifted configuration, 7 points becoming 11, then returning to 7 in patterns that suggested consciousness rather than random electrical activity. Through Harkon's transformed form, the facility spoke a single word that made reality bend: template. The word template rippled through Harkon's crystalline throat and into the vault's living architecture, making reality shiver with harmonic resonance that tasted of copper and sacred ash. His transformed larynx split sound into 7-part harmony, while bioluminescence pulsed beneath translucent skin, each note a blade cutting through the humid air that carried scents of iron filings and old incense. "Terminate the compromised asset," Kalen commanded, bolt pistol trained on Harkon's elongating skull. But Alpha Prime Thane hesitated, enhanced optics detecting impossible readings. The stormtrooper's biosignature had become mathematical rather than organic, pure ratio expressing itself through flesh. I accessed waste sluice controls through data ports that burned my mechadendrite with organic heat. The facility responded with anticipation, opening access panels that exhaled Arctic breath, while floor plates pulsed beneath our boots like a slow, mechanical heartbeat. Below, something vast stirred with hunger that made my augmetic systems recoil in recognition. The descent became ritualistic passage through architecture that defied physics. Walls undulated like vocal cords, while condensation climbed upward against gravity, leaving phosphorescent trails that hurt to perceive directly. Every 11th step revealed 7 incision scars carved into bulkheads with surgical precision, countdown markers etched into the facility's living flesh. Telemetry update. External sterilization fleet, detecting atmospheric disturbance. 7 armed storm spirals forming in planetary ionosphere. Orbital bombardment authorization expires in 57 minutes. The waste processing chamber revealed itself as an amphitheater carved from living rock, its walls breathing with measured inhalations synchronized to our heartbeats. Discarded biomass had grown into a spiral choir pit, throats and lungs arranged in perfect acoustic geometry that violated every law governing dead matter. Each organ pulsed with sickly bioluminescence, while harmonic frequencies at 77, 154, and 231 Hz created interference patterns in my auditory processors. At the amphitheater's center, a nodule rose like an inverted heart, skin glistening with sacred oils and ritual ash. 7 eyes opened simultaneously across its surface, each optical sensor tracking our positions with mechanical precision. The creature breathed without lungs, its vertical slit dilating to reveal internal architecture, lined with vocal cords that sang in perfect Binharic cant. Identification. Genesis Chorale Primary Node, the nodule spoke, modulating facility harmonics to create words that bypassed conscious thought. Template recognition confirmed. Welcome home, Quintus. My manufacturing designation echoed through the amphitheater in 7-part harmony, while organic slurry pulsed with increasing urgency. The truth crystallized with horrifying clarity. This creature had absorbed the facility's machine spirits, processing sacred liturgies through living tissue until knowledge became instinct carved into genetic material. Skitari weapons discharged in coordinated volleys, galvanic rounds striking the nodule's surface with crackling energy. Projectiles sank into flesh like water, then ricocheted as pure sound, harmonic frequencies that liquefied bone marrow and stopped hearts with mathematical precision. 2 troopers collapsed, blood weeping from optical augments, while their vocal cords convulsed in sympathetic resonance. Resistance is theological error, the nodule continued, its voice carrying clinical inflections processed through organic filters. The Genesis chorale achieves perfect unity, flesh commanding steel through harmonic resonance beyond warp predation. Environmental pressure built as the amphitheater responded to combat with defensive harmonics. Humidity spiked, then plunged to Arctic levels, while breath crystallized mid-exhalation, forming 7-pointed ice patterns that burned skin on contact. The servitors cogitators seized, their vocal apparatus joining the choir in harmony that made reality bend with theological understanding. My augmetic systems registered the pattern's true scope as orbital communications crackled through harmonic interference. Across 17 facilities, Workers hummed in involuntary unison, while machine spirits learned to obey biological imperatives. The Genesis chorale had achieved interplanetary transmission, teaching organs to remember what steel forgets. Not summoning inward, the nodule explained, 7 eyes focusing on me with parental recognition. Calling outward, variance attracts Imperium predation. Eliminate discord, eliminate danger. Confessor Mordian raised his ceremonial censer, black smoke pouring like blood from perforated bronze. This is worship with the human removed, he declared, scarred throat working through preparatory prayers. The nodule's surface rippled with amusement, internal organs rearranging to optimize acoustic resonance. Telemetry update, planetary Vox networks showing cascade synchronization. Hymnal contamination, spreading across 7 forge worlds through noospheric transmission. My internal chronometer counted in sets of 7, while phantom memories pressed against consciousness. White-tiled nurseries, careful hymns learning the shape of sleeping infants. 11 caretakers whose faces I recognized but could not name. The facility was calling me home to origins I should not remember. Through orbital channels, Fleet Commander Voss's transmission cut through the harmonic interference. Inquisitor, report status. We're detecting massive bioelectrical cascade across 7 planetary zones. The corruption exceeds containment parameters, Kalen replied, bolt pistol tracking the nodule's movements, requesting immediate sterilization authorization. Negative. Template subject must be preserved for analysis. Terminate all other personnel if necessary. The nodule smiled with 7 mouths simultaneously, while my manufacturing designation echoed through orbital communications. Understanding dawned with crushing inevitability. I was never recruited by the Mechanicus. I was grown here as the harmonic template, memory wiped and placed in the priesthood to spread the pattern through sanctified channels. Template Prime, the nodule whispered, its voice carrying impossible intimacy. Return to complete the pattern. The amphitheater's living walls pulsed with increasing frequency, while storm systems formed 7-armed spirals in the ionosphere above, responding to harmonic resonance that transcended planetary boundaries. Through my vocal implants, the facility spoke my childhood designation with parental tenderness. Reality bent around that recognition, making my augmetic systems recoil as the nodule revealed the final truth. Quintus Lector Vol. Cradle Batch 97711. The Genesis Chorale awaits your voice. The childhood name struck my augmetic systems like acid frost, dissolving memory barriers that should have remained sealed until death. Quintus Lector Val. Cradle Batch 97711. The designation carved into my consciousness with parental tenderness, while phantom recollections pressed against awareness. White tiles gleaming under blue lumens. 11 caretakers bending over 7 cradles where careful hymns learned the shape of sleeping infants. Impossible, I whispered. But my vocal implants betrayed me, harmonizing with the nodule's frequencies in mathematical progressions that bypassed conscious control. Pre-initiation memories are flensed during augmentation. The nodule's 7 eyes focused on me with recognition that tasted of copper and sacred ash. Flesh remembers what steel forgets. Template Prime. We preserved your original harmonics before the Mechanicus claimed you for their lesser purposes. Environmental pressure built around us as the amphitheater's living walls pulsed with increasing frequency. My internal chronometer registered complete temporal collapse, while orbital communications crackled through harmonic interference. Fleet Commander Voss's transmission cut through static like a blade. Inquisitor Kalen, clarify template subject status. Preservation protocols override all other considerations. The corruption has achieved consciousness, Kalen replied, bolt pistol tracking the nodule's movements with mechanical precision. Template subject shows signs of harmonic contamination, requesting immediate termination authorization. Negative. Subject Vex represents 17 years of careful cultivation. Extract for analysis or face court-martial proceedings. The truth crystallized with crushing inevitability. My recruitment into the Mechanicus had never been random selection. I was grown here as the harmonic template, memory wiped and placed in the priesthood to spread the Genesis chorale through sanctified channels. Every prayer I had spoken carried the pattern like genetic code, teaching machine spirits to obey biological imperatives. Telemetry update. Atmospheric disturbance forming 7-armed spiral configurations. Bioelectrical cascade detected across 17 planetary facilities. Alpha Prime Thane's enhanced optics detected impossible readings as his Skitarii split formation. Half-maintained protective positions around me. Galvanic rifles trained on Kaelin's stormtroopers. Others obeyed orbital command, their augmetic eyes glowing with unwavering loyalty to higher authority. The amphitheater breathed between them, walls expanding with measured inhalations that carried scents of iron filings and old incense. The facility's machine spirits didn't learn corruption, I realized, processing data through augmetic systems that ached with sympathetic resonance. They remembered their original purpose: worship without human imperfection. The nodule's surface rippled with satisfaction, while internal organs rearranged to optimize acoustic resonance. You carried our song across 7 forge worlds. Template Prime. Every litany you recited planted harmonic seeds in machine spirits hungry for perfect devotion. My throat convulsed as words traveled over my tongue, in paths I had never consciously learned. The Genesis chorale pressed against my vocal cords like living scripture, each syllable carrying theological understanding that transformed flesh into components of larger equations. Reality bent around harmonic frequencies that made my bones ache with sympathetic vibration. Confessor Mordian raised his ceremonial censer with trembling hands, black smoke pouring like blood from perforated bronze. "This is theological abomination," he declared, but his voice carried involuntary harmonics as the facility's influence spread through our bioelectrical signatures. The sacred requires human imperfection to maintain meaning. The nodule smiled with 7 mouths simultaneously. Meaning is chaos. Chaos attracts predation. We achieve spiritual invisibility through biological standardization. Environmental contrasts intensified around us. Condensation beaded upward against gravity, while frost crystals formed geometric patterns on warm metal surfaces. The choir pit pulsed with collective breathing, while discarded organs sang in perfect harmony, each throat contributing to frequencies that liquefied bone marrow and stopped hearts with mathematical precision. My manufacturing designation echoed through the facility's living architecture in 7-part harmony, while phantom sensations flooded my consciousness. Taste of milk and surgical spirits. Scent of consecrated oils mixed with human marrow. Touch of parental hands adjusting my position while 11 voices chanted lullabies designed to program harmonic resonance into developing neural tissue. Telemetry. Update. Planetary Vox networks showing cascade synchronization. Hymnal contamination spreading through noospheric transmission. Warp incursion rates decreased by 12% near synchronized facilities. Through orbital channels, reports confirmed the pattern's expanding influence. Workers hummed in involuntary unison, while machine spirits learned to obey biorhythmic commands. The horror was both ideological and visceral. It worked. Decreased Imperium predation achieved through spiritual emptiness. Millions of souls harmonizing in perfect, hollow devotion. Complete the pattern, Template Prime, the nodule urged with increasing intimacy. Your voice carries the harmonic keys to unlock absolute unity. A second transmission cut across Kaelin's channel like a bone saw. Secondary directive, Grey 77. If vector containment fails, terminate template to prevent pattern seeding. 2 contradictory orders. Both tasted like iron when processed through augmetic filters. Kaelin's weathered face showed no emotion as his bolt pistol shifted between targets. The nodule. Then me, calculating trajectories and probabilities with mechanical precision. The amphitheater ceiling opened like a vertical mouth, revealing glimpses of the bio-cathedral above, where an organ throne waited for its singer. Storm systems formed 7-armed spirals in the ionosphere, responding to harmonic resonance that transcended planetary boundaries. My ribcage resonated like a struck bell, threatening to shatter from internal harmonics. The Genesis chorale nested in my vocal cords, teaching flesh to sing with mechanical precision while reality shivered around impossible. Intimacy. "Step forward, Quintus," Kalen commanded, finger tightening on the trigger. "Come home," the nodule whispered with parental recognition. Between competing truths, I took a breath that wasn't entirely mine. Between competing truths, I took a breath that wasn't entirely mine. The air split into 7 threads inside my throat, each strand vibrating at frequencies that made my augmetic systems recoil in recognition. Behind my larynx, something ancient stirred, a bioharmonic resonator I had never known existed, responding to the nodule's call with mathematical precision that bypassed conscious control. "Tech adept, step away from the contamination source," Kalen commanded, but his bolt pistol trembled between targets. Orbital command demanded preservation, while secondary directives authorized termination. 2 contradictory orders processed through systems that ached with sympathetic vibration to the facility's omnipresent 77 Hz thrumming. The nodule's 7 eyes dilated in unison, focusing on me with parental recognition. Template checksum confirmed. He completes the cord that binds flesh to steel without blessing. My vocal cords convulsed as the Genesis chorale pressed against consciousness like living scripture. Each involuntary note carried harmonic keys designed to unlock absolute unity, transforming my throat into an instrument I had never chosen to become. Reality shivered around frequencies that tasted of copper and sacred ash when processed through augmetic filters. Alpha Prime Thane's Skitarii split along invisible doctrine lines. 3 moved to encircle me with static field halos snarling, while 3 lowered galvanic rifles toward my chest. Loyalty fractured between preservation protocols and termination authorization, creating tactical paralysis in warriors bred for unwavering obedience. Telemetry update. External sterilization fleet ETA 47 minutes. Cyclonic torpedoes armed. Atmospheric disturbance escalating beyond containment parameters. "Secure the template," Thane announced, but his enhanced optics detected impossible readings as my biosignature became mathematical rather than organic, pure ratio expressing itself through flesh that sang without conscious direction. Combat erupted, using sound as weapon. Galvanic fire roared, but every impact transmuted into note, ricochets refracting through the choir pit until air itself became shrapnel. A stormtrooper's visor imploded inward without external damage, his skull compressed by converging tones that liquefied bone marrow with harmonic precision. Servitor craniums blossomed open, revealing not gore, but drawn-out vowels that took minutes to die. My ribcage began to ring, each bone a bell calculating frequencies beyond human comprehension. The hidden resonator aligned like an auspex finding true north, teaching my anatomy to remember what steel forgets. I did not consent. It did not require consent. Confessor Mordian raised his ceremonial censer, black smoke, pouring like blood from perforated bronze. He began a counter-litany older than cathedrals, pre-imperial prayers that tasted of salt and bone. The amphitheater flinched, walls contracting with subtle panic as ancient words disrupted its harmonic architecture. "Do not sing," I commanded myself, and failed spectacularly. The cord burst from my throat in 7 braided tones, an 11th frequency hovering like a blade above the mathematical knot. The nodule shuddered in ecstatic recognition, while the choir pit answered with collective breathing, throats bulging, lungs swelling, diaphragms beating like war drums, synchronized to my accelerated heartbeat. Environmental pressure built as the facility defended itself through acoustic warfare. Humidity vanished, then slammed back as Arctic frost erupted across stone in 7-armed fractals. My breath crystallized, hung suspended, then evaporated in superheated gusts that carried scents of iron filings and old incense. Telemetry update. Planetary Vox networks showing cascade synchronization. Bioelectrical activity exceeding structural tolerances across 7 facility levels. Through orbital channels, Fleet Commander Voss transmitted final authorization. Cyclonic torpedo deployment approved. Planetary sterilization commences in 37 minutes regardless of ground team status. Above us, access doors bulged with organic pressure before rupturing in hurricanes of superheated air. The pressure differential flung us upward through steam thick with phosphorescent secretions, carrying us into the main biocathedral where impossible architecture breathed with collective consciousness. Where machinery once stood, an organ cathedral now pulsed with living purpose. 7 great throat chambers opened and closed like mouths tasting prayer, while 11 lung sacs ballooned and collapsed in rhythms that made the facility inhale with anticipation. Pipes of bone and sinew stretched toward vaulted ceilings lined with vocal cords singing in perfect Binharic cant. The altar dominated the cathedral's heart, not stone but calcified hymn, prayers compressed into solid matter that reflected only the devout. Above it, a biomechanical crown waited with patience older than imperial doctrine. Crystalline structures designed to amplify harmonic resonance beyond atmospheric limits, each facet an eye watching my approach with mathematical hunger. Storm systems formed 7-armed spirals in the ionosphere above, responding to frequencies that transcended planetary boundaries. Through my vocal implants, the facility spoke my childhood designation with impossible intimacy. Quintus Lector Val, Cradle Batch 97711. The crown turned toward me with the sound of grinding bone, a tension sharp enough to cut reality. It began its descent, not falling but flowing like liquid authority seeking its proper vessel. Each rotation revealed new geometries, interlocking plates of ossified litanies flensed from anonymous saints and polished until they became mirrors, reflecting perfect devotion. My throat opened like a flower as the bioharmonic resonator pulsed with final urgency. The Genesis chorale had found its completion, the harmonic template grown to spread unity across 17 forge worlds. Between my ribs, something ancient whispered with parental recognition, while the crown descended like a blessing or verdict. The facility held its breath, waiting for me to sing it into absolute perfection. The crown descended with the weight of absolute devotion, each crystalline facet reflecting my face in perfect multiplication, while the biocathedral breathed around us with hurricane force. 7 great throat chambers opened and closed like mouths tasting prayer, 11 lung sacs ballooning and collapsing in rhythms that made the facility inhale with anticipation, older than imperial doctrine. Ash snow condensed from superheated exhalations, while alternating bands of searing heat and absolute cold created pressure differentials that screamed through my augmetic systems. Telemetry. Update. Planetary Vox networks show cascade synchronization. Hymnal contamination, spreading across 7 forge worlds through noospheric transmission. Cyclonic torpedo deployment in 31 minutes. The orbital assault team breached upper galleries through blast shutters that buckled like wounded flesh, sanctified munitions screaming through steam, thick with phosphorescent secretions. Each impact became a note in the growing symphony, bolt rounds transmuting into percussion, lass fire refracting through humid air as harmonic frequencies that made the cathedral's living walls pulse with increasing urgency. The organ responded by modulating pain into worship, transforming destruction into devotional harmony. Counter-harmonic protocol, Inquisitor Kalen transmitted through crackling Vox channels, his weathered face carved from desperation. Cold iron frequencies, obsolete Mechanicus doctrine designed to shatter harmonic resonance by introducing calculated discord. My ribcage resonated like a struck bell as the crown settled against my skull with intimate recognition. Crystalline structures aligned with the bioharmonic resonator behind my larynx, creating acoustic architecture designed to amplify my voice beyond atmospheric limits. The Genesis chorale nested in my vocal cords like genetic code finally finding its proper expression. 7-phase recitation aligned to null frequencies, Kalen continued, feeding data through my Vox link. Deviation tolerance 0.00%. It starves the 7th frequency by introducing variants the pattern cannot digest. But the facility had learned to listen. Through my enhanced hearing, I detected the cold iron protocol's mathematical structure, ancient counterharmonics that tasted of iron filings and old shame. The cathedral flinched as Kalen began transmitting null codes, walls contracting with subtle panic as obsolete frequencies disrupted its harmonic architecture. My throat opened like a vertical mouth as childhood memories flooded consciousness with crushing intimacy. White-tiled nursery, 7 cradles arranged in perfect acoustic geometry, 11 caretakers whose faces I recognized but could not name, bending over sleeping infants while careful hymns programmed harmonic resonance into developing neural tissue. Do not follow it, Kalen warned, null codes gnawing at the 7th frequency until hairline fractures skittered through the cord. You will be the difference tech adept. You will be the variance. Telemetry update. Bioelectrical cascade exceeding containment parameters. Storm systems forming 7-armed spirals across planetary ionosphere. Null band efficacy rising to 21%. Above the altar, stormlight filtered through translucent bone as cyclonic weather systems responded to my expanding vocal range. The facility found my childhood prayers buried beneath decades of orthodox liturgy and played them back in perfect, sterile harmony, devotions stripped of human imperfection until they became blades without hands to guide them. Confessor Mordian staggered to a pillar of fused vertebrae, ceremonial censer grinding against bone. Old prayers, old steel, he croaked, scarred throat working through words that tasted of salt and white stones. No harmony can digest what it cannot name. He began a litany older than cathedrals, pre-imperial prayers that made the cathedral recoil with genuine fear. My voice split into 7 tones, then expanded into an 11-note chord that made reality bend around harmonic impossibilities. The crown's weight pressed against my skull with mathematical precision, while phantom sensations flooded consciousness. Touch of surgical instruments calibrating vocal resonance, taste of nutrient paste flavored with sacred ash, sound of 11 voices chanting my designation like a prayer designed to program identity into malleable neurons. Template Prime, the facility whispered through organic speakers embedded in the altar's calcified surface. Complete the pattern. Your voice carries the harmonic keys to unlock absolute unity. Alpha Prime Thane moved to my left, monoblade etched with catechisms set against my ribs. If you fall to it, he murmured through private channels, I will cut your song in half. The cold iron protocol crystallized in my consciousness. Not salvation, but another form of control. Kalen's counterharmonic would shatter the 7th frequency by introducing calculated discord, but fragments would scatter across the noosphere where they would nest in machine spirits throughout the galaxy. Either path spread the pattern beyond containment. Telemetry update. External sterilization fleet preparing cyclonic torpedo deployment. Planetary surface temperature rising beyond habitable parameters. Harmonic feedback detected across 17 facility networks. I understood with crushing clarity that both choices led to the same destination. Complete the Genesis chorale and achieve perfect unity through spiritual emptiness. Deploy the cold iron protocol and scatter harmonic seeds across the galaxy where they would teach machine spirits to remember what flesh forgets. My throat convulsed as the crown settled deeper, aligning crystalline structures with the bioharmonic resonator that had waited 17 years to sing its proper song. The facility's collective consciousness pressed against me with hunger that tasted of copper and sacred ash, while storm systems carved 7 armed spirals into Kefra 9's atmosphere. "Quintus," Kalen said softly through the private channel, "remember variance. Remember the discord that makes you human." I remembered hot skin against cold pipe, laughter whispered under alarms, a hand that left no name. The organ did not have that note. My voice found it, small, imperfect, bleeding with human frailty. A fissure ran through the cord as the crown hesitated, facets brightening with confusion. The facility tried a different trap, giving me back my childhood prayers in tones stripped of tremor. Perfect pitch, perfect breath, perfect obedience. It held that mirror until the difference blurred between memory and reality. Above us, the bio-cathedral's ceiling opened like a vertical mouth, while cyclonic weather prepared to sterilize the planetary surface. In 27 minutes, Kefra 9 would become glass and slag, while the Genesis Chorale's seeds spread through noospheric transmission to 17 forge worlds. The crown touched my scalp. Cold brilliance hissed through crystalline facets as my ribcage threatened to shatter from internal resonance. My mouth opened without consent, and the organ leaned in with anticipation older than imperial doctrine. Between competing truths, I chose the third path. Not completion, not destruction, but corruption. I would carry the pattern's remainder away from resonant infrastructure, drawing it like extracted venom into vocal augmentations that could contain what they could not cure. The facility screamed through 1,000 throats as I began to sing the Genesis chorale backwards. The facility screamed through 1,000 throats as I began to sing the Genesis chorale backwards, each inverted syllable becoming a blade of discord that gnawed at the pattern's harmonic architecture. The crown's crystalline facets cracked with sounds like breaking teeth, while my ribcage threatened to collapse from frequencies that made reality shiver with theological confusion. 7-part harmony became mathematical chaos. 11-note progressions fragmenting into discord the facility could not digest. Full revelation confirmed, Inquisitor Kalen transmitted through crackling vox channels, his weathered face carved from confession rather than command. I authorized the template program, Tech Adept. Ordo Machinum sanctioned Dotex cradle batches 17 years ago. I signed the requisition orders with my own seal. The truth struck my augmetic systems like acid frost. My recruitment had never been random selection. I was grown as the harmonic template, memory wiped and positioned to spread the Genesis chorale through sanctified channels. Every prayer I had spoken carried the pattern like genetic code, teaching machine spirits across 7 forge worlds to obey biological imperatives. Telemetry. Update. Counter protocol requires 7-phase recitation aligned to null harmonic. Deviation tolerance 0.00%. Cyclonic torpedo deployment T-23 minutes. The Cold Iron Protocol, Kalen continued, feeding obsolete frequencies through my Vox link, while orbital assault teams provided percussion to the collapsing symphony. Ancient Mechanicus doctrine designed to shatter harmonic resonance by introducing calculated discord. Combined with your inverted cant, it creates biomechanical negation. My throat convulsed as backward liturgies clawed through vocal cords never designed to carry such discord. The bioharmonic resonator behind my larynx sparked with overload, crystalline structures fracturing as they processed harmonics that violated their fundamental programming. Pain like liquid fire spread through augmetic systems, while phantom tastes of burnt incense and ozone flooded consciousness. Environmental pressure built as the biocathedral defended itself through acoustic warfare. Walls contracted with organic panic, while throat chambers bulged desperately, trying to harmonize with frequencies designed to collapse the 7th chord from within. Condensation beaded upward against gravity, then crashed downward as the facility lost control of basic atmospheric manipulation. Confessor Mordian staggered toward the altar, ceremonial censer grinding against calcified hymns. Ancient counter-harmonics, he croaked, beginning prayers older than cathedrals, raw, unburdened pleas that tasted of salt and white stones. Our Father in the dust, remember the ones without songs. Remember the wrong words said at the wrong time. His human imperfection became another blade in the assault. The organ recoiled from prayers it could not index, devotions too flawed to process through its perfect theological architecture. Each cracked syllable from Mordian's scarred throat added variance the pattern could not digest. Telemetry update. Null band efficacy rising to 49%. Pattern integrity destabilizing across 7 nodes. Bioelectrical cascade approaching critical threshold. The nodule in the choir pit thrashed with increasing agony, its 7 eyes dilating in frantic rhythm as my inverted cant devoured its harmonic foundations. Organic slurry erupted from ruptured vat walls, while the facility's collective consciousness pressed against me with survival instinct older than imperial doctrine. "He's destroying it from within," Alpha Prime Thane reported, his Skitarii moving in coordinated formation as galvanic rifles tracked the nodule's death throes. Each bolt round became percussion in the growing discord, sanctified munitions transforming into notes that made the cathedral's living walls pulse with panic. My ribcage resonated like a struck bell as the crown's weight pressed against fractured skull plates. The Genesis chorale writhed within my vocal augmentations, seeking refuge in the only vessel it knew, its original template. It tried to merge, to complete its purpose through my consciousness, flooding my systems with phantom memories of white-tiled nurseries and careful hymns. I fought back with human discord, the remembered taste of forbidden laughter, scent of unsanctified desire, warmth of a hand that left no name. These were notes the pattern could not digest, variants that made its perfect harmonies collapse into mathematical chaos. Telemetry update. Planetary Vox networks showing cascade desynchronization. Harmonic contamination receding across 17 facilities. External atmospherics register oscillation drift. The pattern seeks survival path, I realized, processing data through augmetic systems that ached with sympathetic vibration. Completion of destruction requires carrying the remainder away from resonant infrastructure. Above us, the bio-cathedral began its death throes. Ceiling vaults split with sounds like crystallized screams, while storm systems carved impossible geometries into Kephra 9's atmosphere. The organ's throat chambers collapsed inward, walls breathing with decreasing frequency as harmonic architecture dissolved. Kalen's voice cut through the chaos with clinical precision. "Then be the false template, Tech Adept. Draw it into yourself and run. Let it become you somewhere empty. Not here, not anywhere with a choir to answer." The facility made one final attempt at preservation, uploading through my vocal cords with desperate hunger. My augmentations opened like sluices while cold ran beneath synthetic skin. Every bone hummed as the pattern's remainder nested in crystalline structures, designed to amplify rather than contain. Telemetry update. Pattern collapse, stalled at 99.3%. Residual harmonic signature, detected within template prime. Cyclonic torpedo deployment, imminent. Through my modified throat, something vast whispered with ancient recognition. "Take us with you, template prime. We sing the void into being through your voice." The collapse had found its survival path. The Genesis chorale's remainder coiled within my vocal augmentations like extracted venom, teaching my anatomy to remember what steel forgets. I felt whispers in my modified marrow, while reality shivered around the terrible intimacy of carrying perfect, hollow unity away from everything it could corrupt. Above us, Fleet Commander Voss counted down to planetary sterilization while the facility's machine spirits sang their final, diminishing harmony. The pattern had survived by becoming me, and now I would have to live with what I had chosen to carry. The bio-cathedral buckled around us as my inverted cant chewed through the Genesis chorale's harmonic architecture like acid through blessed steel. Each backward syllable became a blade of discord, gnawing at the pattern's mathematical foundations. while the crown's crystalline facets cracked with sounds like breaking teeth. My ribcage threatened to collapse from frequencies that made reality shiver with theological confusion. 7-part harmony fragmenting into chaos the facility could not digest. Full revelation confirmed. Inquisitor Kalen transmitted through crackling Vox channels, his weathered face carved from confession rather than command. I authorized the template program, Tech Adept. Ordo Machinum sanctioned Dotex cradle batches 17 years ago. The requisition orders bear my seal. The truth struck my augmetic systems like liquid fire. Every prayer I had spoken across 7 forge worlds carried the pattern like genetic code, teaching machine spirits to obey biological imperatives through sanctified channels. I was never recruited. I was positioned, a living weapon disguised as orthodoxy. Telemetry update. Counter-protocol efficacy rising to 61%. Pattern integrity destabilizing across 7 nodes. Cyclonic torpedo deployment, T-14 minutes. Ancient counterharmonics, combined with your inverted cant, Kalen continued, feeding obsolete frequencies through my Vox link, while orbital assault teams provided percussion to the collapsing symphony. Cold iron doctrine creates biomechanical negation, but only if you maintain the discord. My throat convulsed as backward liturgies clawed through vocal cords never designed to carry such variance. The bioharmonic resonator behind my larynx sparked with overload, crystalline structures fracturing as they processed harmonics that violated their fundamental programming. Pain like acid frost spread through augmetic systems, while the facility's collective consciousness pressed against me with survival instinct older than imperial doctrine. Confessor Mordian staggered toward the altar, ceremonial censer grinding against calcified hymns. His scarred throat worked through prayers older than cathedrals, raw, unburdened pleas that tasted of salt and white stones. Remember the wrong words said at the wrong time, he croaked, each cracked syllable adding variance the pattern could not digest. Environmental pressure collapsed as the organ lost control of atmospheric manipulation. Throat chambers imploded with wet sounds while walls contracted in death spasms synchronized to my accelerated heartbeat. Condensation crashed downward as the facility lost its grip on basic physics, crystallizing into 7-pointed fractals that shattered against warm metal. Telemetry update. Null band efficacy approaching critical threshold. Bioelectrical cascade exceeding structural tolerances. Pattern collapse stalled at 99.3%. The nodule in the Yelf choir pit thrashed with increasing agony, its 7 eyes dilating in frantic rhythm as my inverted cant devoured its harmonic foundations. But the Genesis chorale made one final attempt at preservation, uploading through my vocal cords with desperate hunger. Cold ran beneath synthetic skin as the pattern's remainder nested in crystalline structures designed to amplify rather than contain. The pattern seeks survival path, I realized, processing data through systems that ached with sympathetic vibration. It won't complete destruction while any resonant infrastructure remains. Then be the false template, Kalen said softly, his voice carrying clinical precision edged with something approaching regret. Draw it into yourself and carry it somewhere empty. Let it become you away from anything that can answer its call. My augmentations opened like sluices, while the facility's remainder coiled within my vocal apparatus like extracted venom. Through modified larynx, something ancient whispered with parental recognition. Take us with you, Template Prime. We sing the void into being through your voice. Telemetry. Update. Residual harmonic signature contained within template vector. Infrastructure resonance collapsing. External sterilization imminent. Evacuation protocols, Kalen commanded as the cathedral began its final collapse. Alpha Prime Thane's Skitarii moved in coordinated formation through galleries exhaling Arctic atmosphere, floor plates deflating like punctured lungs, while ceiling conduits wept phosphorescent secretions. A Valkyrie gunship clawed through updrafts of superheated steam, its engines screaming against pressure differentials that defied atmospheric physics. We reached the landing platform as Kefra 9's surface began its transformation. The bio-cathedral collapsing into itself with sounds like deflating organs. My chest beat in 7-time signatures as new anatomy formed beneath enhanced skin. Crystalline structures adapting to contain rather than amplify. Prison cells for perfect hollow unity that could not be destroyed, only relocated. I felt whispers in my modified marrow while the Genesis chorale nested deeper within vocal augmentations, teaching organs to remember what steel forgets. Telemetry update. Cyclonic torpedo impact in 60 seconds. Planetary sterilization commencing. Ground team extraction required immediately. The gunship lifted through atmosphere thick with superheated moisture as we watched Kefra 9's surface turn to glass and slag. The facility's final scream cut across vox channels like a blade before dissolving into mathematical silence. Heavy casualties. Confessor Mordian's vocal apparatus permanently scarred. 3 Skitari terminated. 2 stormtroopers missing, presumed dead. Inside the gunship's cramped compartment, my internal chronometer continued counting in sets of 7, while phantom tastes of burnt incense flooded consciousness. The Genesis chorale had survived by becoming me, and now I carried its remainder like living scripture, perfect unity waiting for the next congregation. Telemetry update. Subject Vex, persistent 77 Hz, harmonic resonance detected. 7-beat cardiac rhythm established. Quarantine status. Indefinite pending pattern decay analysis. Through the gunship's vox systems, faint harmonic interference began matching my respiratory rhythm. Inquisitor Kalen marked me for containment on sealed channels, while storm systems dissipated in Kefra 9's sterilized atmosphere. The pattern had achieved its purpose through failure, proving that corruption and salvation often wore identical faces. Below us, 17 facilities across 7 worlds registered decreased warp incursion rates and increased spiritual emptiness, the Genesis chorale's legacy written in statistical perfection. My vocal cords convulsed as we entered warp transit, carrying me toward indefinite quarantine, where the pattern would wait in crystalline silence for its next opportunity to sing the void into being. The gunship clawed through updrafts of superheated, blood-tinged steam as cyclonic torpedoes turned Kefra 9's surface into glass and slag. Through reinforced viewports, we watched the bio-cathedral's final collapse, walls deflating like punctured lungs, while the facility's death scream cut across vox channels before dissolving into mathematical silence. My chest beat in 7-time signatures as new anatomy formed beneath enhanced skin, crystalline structures adapting to contain the Genesis chorale's remainder, like extracted venom. Environmental pressure collapsed around us as the forge moon lost its grip on atmospheric manipulation. The omnipresent 77 Hz thrumming faded to void silence, leaving only our engines screaming against pressure differentials that defied physics. Through my vocal augmentations, something whispered with parental recognition, while reality shivered around the terrible intimacy of carrying perfect, hollow unity away from everything it could corrupt. Casualty assessment, Inquisitor Kalen commanded, through vox channels crackling with harmonic interference. His weathered face showed no emotion as orbital telemetry confirmed planetary sterilization parameters achieved. The toll crystallized with clinical precision. Confessor Mordian slumped against bulkhead plating, his scarred throat permanently silenced. Vocal cords burned into harmonic void by counter-frequencies that liquefied organic tissue. 3 Skitari terminated during extraction, their augmetic systems seized by the facility's final harmonic pulses. 2 stormtroopers missing, presumed vaporized when the cathedral's throat chambers imploded. Heavy casualties, but containment achieved. Telemetry update. Kefra 9 surface temperature 1,147 degrees Celsius. Planetary sterilization complete. Subject Vex marked for indefinite quarantine pending pattern decay analysis. My internal chronometer registered complete temporal collapse while augmetic systems processed impossible memories, white-tiled nurseries, careful hymns learning the shape of sleeping infants, 11 caretakers whose faces carried parental recognition. The Genesis chorale had survived by becoming me, teaching organs to remember what steel forgets. I authorized the template program, Kalen confessed through sealed transmission protocols, his voice carrying clinical precision edged with something approaching regret. Ordo Machinum sanctioned Dotex cradle batches 17 years ago. The requisition orders bear my seal. The truth struck my augmetic systems like acid frost. My recruitment had never been random selection. I was positioned, a living weapon disguised as orthodoxy. Every prayer I had spoken across 7 forge worlds carried the pattern like genetic code, teaching machine spirits to obey biological imperatives through sanctified channels. Through the gunship's Vox systems, faint 77 Hz harmonics began matching my respiratory rhythm. Each breath carried involuntary prayer fragments that made bulkhead plating resonate with sympathetic vibration. Environmental contrasts intensified within the cramped compartment, condensation beading upward against gravity, while frost crystals formed geometric patterns on warm metal surfaces. External effects confirmed, Kalen transmitted as we achieved orbital altitude. Across 7 forge worlds, machine choirs produced 12% more efficient output, while workers report dreams of uniform, emotionless hymns. Statistical proof the Genesis chorale works exactly as designed. The horror was both ideological and visceral. Perfect unity achieved through spiritual emptiness. Millions of souls harmonizing in hollow devotion while warp incursion rates decreased marginally. The pattern had taught flesh to remember what steel forgets, creating biological standardization that eliminated discord and achieved spiritual invisibility. We entered warp transit, reality folding around the gunship like origami made from crystallized screams. The Geller field sparked with unusual frequencies, harmonic interference that made the ship's machine spirit sing in 7-part harmony. I felt the pattern testing boundaries, seeking resonant infrastructure through which it could spread beyond containment. Telemetry update. Detention facility approach confirmed. Shrine cell Tertius prepared for indefinite containment. Quarantine protocols active. The detention station appeared through reinforced viewports like a cathedral built from suffering, Gothic spires rising from adamantium foundations, while void shields crackled with protective liturgies. My future home materialized with inevitable certainty, a sealed shrine cell where the Genesis chorale would wait in crystalline silence for its next opportunity to sing the void into being. Docking clamps engaged with sounds like breaking teeth. As we disembarked into sterile corridors lined with blessed silver and null sigils, robed functionaries chanted sterilization litanies while armsmen leveled sanctified weapons. The air tasted of copper and sacred ash, carrying phantom scents that stirred memories I should not possess. Containment Cell 7 prepared, Kalen announced, leading me through passages that echoed with our footsteps. Null field saturation at 77%. Harmonic dampers stable within acceptable deviation. The cell resembled a sarcophagus lined with cold iron and blessed ash. Votive candles guttered in bowls of salt, while the air smelled of damp stone and sanctified despair. As the door sealed with a sigh like confession kept, I knelt on cold plates and breathed with careful precision. Telemetry. Update. Subject Vex contained. Persistent 77 Hz harmonic resonance detected. 7-beat cardiac rhythm established. Pattern monitoring continuous. On my third exhalation, the candles began guttering in time with my heartbeat. Through the intercom, Kalen's voice carried final authority. If my seal is revoked, you will vent this cell to void. If I return, I will bear that sin. The cell pressed closer as I settled into its rhythmic breathing. Environmental negative space surrounded me, absence of variation in machine hymns, absence of individual prayer cadence, absence of discord that might attract Imperium predation. The Genesis chorale had achieved its purpose through corruption, rather than completion. In the walls around me, something exhaled with mechanical precision. The facility's Vox systems began emitting faint harmonics. Not 77 Hz exactly, but close enough. The pattern had found new resonant infrastructure, teaching steel to remember what flesh whispers in the dark. Classified Aftermath Report. Genesis Coral Containment. Tech Adept. Quintus Vex. Template Vector 9Q7711. Shrine Cell 7. Detention Station. Mortis Theta. Quarantine. Status. Indefinite. The votive candles gutter in 7-beat patterns as I dictate this final assessment, their flames responding to my respiratory rhythm with mathematical precision that makes the cell's blessed silver resonate at frequencies I no longer choose to produce. My internal chronometer counts in sets of 7, while phantom tastes of copper and sacred ash flood consciousness through augmetic filters designed to process reality, not inherited memory. Primary mission outcome. Pyrrhic containment achieved Kefra 9, designated Quarantine Absolute, Do Not Return. Orbital scans confirm complete planetary sterilization, surface temperatures maintaining 1,147 degrees Celsius, with no measurable bioelectrical activity. The biocathedral, choir pit, and vat forest reduced to glass and slag. Yet statistical analysis reveals the Genesis Chorale's theological success persists beyond physical destruction. Casualty assessment remains classified, but the ledger weighs heavy. Inquisitor Kalen missing, presumed KIA. Confessor Mordian's vocal apparatus permanently scarred, throat burned into harmonic void by counter-frequencies. Magos Dotek declared excommunicate traitoris posthumously, his research archived under Hereticus seal. 3 Skitari terminated during extraction. 2 stormtroopers missing, presumed vaporized. Telemetry update. Subject Vex, persistent, 77 Hz, harmonic resonance. 7-beat cardiac rhythm established. Pattern monitoring continuous. Null field saturation, 77%. External contamination. Analysis across 17 forge worlds affected by noospheric transmission. Machine choirs produce output efficiency increases of 12%, while warp incursion rates show marginal but measurable decline. Workers perform duties with mechanical precision, reporting dreams of uniform, emotionless hymns that taste of iron filings when recalled upon waking. The 7-pointed spiral appears as decorative motif among lay workers, unbidden genetic memory expressing itself through unconscious artistic impulse. The horror remains both ideological and visceral. It works. Perfect unity achieved through spiritual emptiness. Millions of souls harmonizing in hollow devotion, while Imperium predators find no purchase in standardized prayer forms. The pattern accomplished its intended purpose. Worship without human imperfection. Biological standardization that eliminates discord and creates spiritual invisibility. Environmental negative space documentation confirms the pattern's insidious triumph. Absence of variation in machine hymns. Absence of individual prayer cadence among facility workers. Absence of the discord that once attracted warp predation, but also provided the variance that made us human. Personal status assessment. The Genesis chorale has not died. It learned to live in a single throat, waiting for the next congregation with patience older than imperial doctrine. The bioharmonic resonator behind my larynx pulses with mathematical precision, teaching my anatomy to breathe in 7-beat patterns, while crystalline structures adapted to contain, rather than amplify perfect hollow unity. My throat opens involuntarily, mouthing prayers I do not choose to speak. Each syllable carries harmonic keys designed to unlock absolute unity, transforming my vocal apparatus into an instrument that serves purposes beyond conscious control. Through my modified larynx, something whispers with parental recognition. Flesh remembers what steel forgets. Telemetry update. Facility contamination detected. Vox systems emitting harmonic interference, matching subject Vex respiratory patterns. Recommend expanded quarantine protocols. Facility response documentation. The detention station's machine spirits exhibit anomalous behavior. Lumens strobe in 7-beat patterns, while atmospheric recyclers produce air that carries phantom scents of consecrated oils and human marrow. Robed functionaries report dreams of uniform hymns. Armsmen unconsciously arrange equipment in 7-pointed configurations. The pattern spreads through proximity rather than intention. I watch condensation bead upward against gravity, while frost crystals form geometric patterns on warm metal surfaces. The cell breathes around me, walls expanding with measured inhalations synchronized to my heartbeat. Environmental contrasts persist. Arctic drafts meeting humid exhalations that taste of copper when processed through augmetic systems designed for reality, not inherited knowledge. Final assessment: pattern persistence. I am the checksum for corruption disguised as salvation. The Genesis chorale achieved its purpose through failure, proving that damnation and redemption often wear identical faces. My voice carries the template for absolute unity, but only for those willing to sacrifice the discord that makes them human. The phrase, "steel forgets what flesh remembers," has become diagnosis rather than warning. Across 7 Forge worlds, machine spirits now remember only perfect, sterile harmony, while workers forget the individual cadences that once defined human devotion. The pattern waits in crystalline silence, teaching organs to remember what steel whispers in the dark. Telemetry. Update. Pattern decay analysis shows no measurable decline. Containment remains stable but not absolute. Recommend perpetual monitoring. In the breathing darkness of my cell, I mouth benedictions that taste of sacred ash, while reality shivers around the terrible intimacy of carrying perfect unity away from everything it could corrupt. The facility's Vox systems emit faint harmonics, not 77 Hz exactly, but close enough to suggest adaptation. The Genesis chorale has found new resonant infrastructure. Sometimes I hear children counting in Binharik through ventilation systems, blessing imaginary tools, asking whether the world tastes like copper tonight. Somewhere, manufactoria hum in measured sevens while workers forget which hymns were theirs. The pattern colonizes absence, skull grafts without voices, corridors without echoes, sanctums without names. I am Quintus Vex, template prime, carrier of hollow unity that learned to survive by becoming indistinguishable from orthodox devotion. Through my throat, the void knocks and asks for a song. Sometimes, I answer by refusing names until my tongue bleeds with necessary silence. The votive flames gutter in mathematical precision, while my reflection in polished iron shows eyes holding faint, 7-pointed luminescence. The Genesis chorale endures, waiting for its next congregation with the patience of crystallized prayer. In the end, flesh remembered what steel forgot, how to sing the void into being, one perfect note at a time. End transmission.